Have you ever looked at your phone and seen a heart symbol next to a name that wasn't yours? My mother-in-law, Brenda, didn't just laugh. She cackled, pointing at my suitcase on the wet pavement. Finally, she said, the trash is taking itself out. They thought they took everything. They forgot I had one phone number, a number I swore I'd never use, a number that could and would end them all. My name is Maya. I am 35 years old. The fluorescent green vacancy sign outside my window is buzzing like a dying insect, and the sound is drilling into my skull. It is the only noise besides the cold Austin rain lashing against the thin glass of this cheap motel room. The room smells like industrial bleach and desperation. My desperation. My hands are shaking so hard I can barely hold the phone. The battery is flashing red. 3%. The ink. That is what I keep seeing. The thick, wet smear of black ink on the cheap paper Liam threw on our dining table. It happened only 2 hours ago, but it feels like a different lifetime. A different, stupid woman. Liam had walked in, his face set like stone, not even looking at me. He just tossed the stack of papers. They skidded across the polished wood, stopping right at my coffee cup. I'm done, Maya, he said. His voice was flat, cold. Sign them. Behind him, framed in the doorway of my home, stood his mother, Brenda, and his sister, Tiffany. And they were filming. Their phones were held high, 2 glowing rectangles capturing my confusion, their faces split in matching, triumphant smirks. What is this? My voice was weak, a whisper. Liam, what are you doing? It's a divorce, Maya. Keep up. My world tilted. I grabbed the edge of the table to steady myself. The divorce. What about the startup? What about our investment? All the money we put in? Liam laughed. It was a horrible barking sound I had never heard before. There is no our. Maya, the startup is a success. My success. And you already signed over your entire stake to me. My blood went cold. What are you talking about? He pulled another single sheet of paper from his briefcase. He held it up, jabbing a finger at the bottom. My looping, trusting signature. Last week, the business loan application. Remember, I did. I remembered signing it while I was cooking dinner, him hovering over me, impatient. For the expansion, he had said. This, he said, tapping the paper, was a full, non-revocable transfer of all your shares, 100%, to me. He gestured toward the window, a cruel smile twisting his lips. My new partner is waiting. I looked past him, through the window to the street. A new, gleaming white sports car was parked at the curb, a car I had never seen before. In the driver's seat, I could see the silhouette of a woman, Simone, the name I had seen on his phone, the one with the heart symbol next to it. Get out, he said. This is my home. Liam, you cannot. Wrong again. He was enjoying this, savoring every second. I transferred the lease into my name only last month. You are officially trespassing. Get your things. Brenda shoved past me. I will help with that. She marched into our bedroom and came back dragging my largest suitcase. She did not just carry it. She threw it out the front door, onto the pavement. The zipper burst on impact. My clothes, my life, spilled onto the wet concrete. Tiffany zoomed in with her camera. Oh, look, Mom, trash day. I stood there, frozen in the doorway as the rain began to soak my socks. Liam walked up to me, leaning in so close I could smell the expensive cologne he was wearing. You are nothing without me, Maya, he whispered, his breath hot and sour. You thought you were so special, leaving your family for me. You are not a Vance. You are just 0. He was right about one thing. I had left them. My family. The Boston old money I had run away from because I thought it was stuffy and cold. I ran away to be with him, this warm, ambitious man. This snake. He turned. stepped right over my ruined suitcase, and got into the passenger seat of the white car. Brenda and Tiffany piled into the back, still laughing. I watched them drive away, their faces pressed to the glass, their mouths open in silent mockery as the car splashed muddy water onto my favorite coat. Which brings me back to this room, the buzzing light, the smell of bleach, my life, shattered. But he made one mistake. He called me a zero. He forgot where I came from. He forgot that even if I abandoned the Vances, they never fully abandoned me. My thumb hovers over the last number in a secure, encrypted app I was told to install and never use. My battery is at 1%. I press the call button. It rings once, a crisp, clean connection. A professional voice answers instantly. My voice cracks, but I say the words. Ms. Evelyn, it's me, Maya. He did it. He took everything. It was less than 45 minutes. My phone had gone black, the battery finally dead. But the buzzing of the motel sign seemed to be vibrating inside my bones. I was huddled under a polyester blanket that smelled like cigarettes when a new sound cut through the rain, the low, confident hum of an expensive engine. I peered through a gap in the blinds. A black sedan, so dark it seemed to suck in the weak light from the street, was parked directly in front of my door. It was not flashy. It was legal. It was power. The rear door opened and a woman stepped out. She did not bother with an umbrella. The rain would not dare to ruin her posture. Her silver hair was coiled in a tight, merciless bun, and her navy blue suit looked like it had been custom-made for a boardroom execution. Evelyn Reed, the senior counsel for the Vance family. A woman I had not seen in a decade, not since I had turned my back on Boston. She did not knock. She rapped her knuckles against the door twice, a sound like a gavel. I stumbled and pulled the door open. Evelyn's eyes scanned the room, cataloging the filth, my tear-streaked face, my bare, stockinged feet on the damp carpet. There was no pity in her gaze, only assessment. "Maya," she said. Her voice was pure, cold steel. She stepped inside, forcing me to move backward. She immediately unbuttoned her own heavy wool coat and draped it over my shaking shoulders. It was warm and smelled of power and faint, expensive lavender. "We are leaving," she stated. She handed me a heavy metallic device. "A secure satellite phone. Your Aunt Matilda is on the line." My voice was a croak. "How did you—" "I just called—" "My team was mobilized the second you hung up," Evelyn said, cutting off my chaotic thoughts. 2 men in identical dark suits had emerged from the sedan. They were not lawyers, they were security, and they were already scanning the perimeter. "Mr. Graves, our forensic accountant, is waiting on the jet." She picked up my purse from the floor and then paused, resting her own sleek black briefcase on the stained table. "Liam gave you papers. I understand," she said. I could only nod, the memory of the ink stain making me sick. "These," Evelyn said, tapping the briefcase with one polished fingernail, "are the real papers. Maya, while you were driving to this motel, I was filing. This briefcase contains a finalized, judge-signed emergency injunction freezing every single asset, account, and credit line associated with your name, and by extension, his. It also contains a criminal suit for felony fraud, filed with the state of Texas." She saw the confusion still clouding my face and clarified, her voice precise. "The title of this story you find yourself in, when you called me, you fulfilled it. I, the lawyer, was literally walking into the federal courthouse with the papers, the injunction, the second you hung up. Liam's financial world just ceased to exist. He simply does not know it yet." The next hour was a disorienting blur of quiet efficiency. I was guided from the motel, the security team forming a shield around me. We bypassed the main Austin airport entirely, driving straight onto the tarmac of a private hangar where a Gulfstream jet sat gleaming, its engines already whining. Inside, it was not a luxury lounge, it was a war room. A pale, intense man with wire-rimmed glasses. Mr. Graves was already at a table, surrounded by 3 laptops. He barely glanced up. "Ms. Vance, please sit." The jet was airborne before I had even buckled my seatbelt, climbing steeply away from the Texas storm. The moment we leveled off, the briefing began. "Innovatex," Graves said, his fingers a blur across a keyboard. "It is not a startup. It is a shell corporation, a sophisticated one, but a shell nonetheless." "He stole my money," I whispered, the words tasting like acid. "My trust fund." "That was the seed money." Graves finally stopped typing and looked at me over the rim of his glasses. "Ms. Vance, with all due respect, he did not just steal your trust fund. That was pocket change." My head snapped up. I looked at Evelyn, who was watching me, her face impassive. Graves turned one of his laptops toward me. It was a dizzying flowchart of offshore accounts and encrypted transactions. "Mr. Donovan has been siphoning," Graves said. "From Vance Global." My blood turned to ice. Vance Global, my family's corporation, the empire I had walked away from. "That is impossible. He has no access." "He had your access," Graves corrected me. "He used your name and your company, InnovateX, as a cutout. He billed Vance Global for millions in R&D consulting services that were never rendered. But it is worse than simple theft." He pointed to a name on the screen. "Helios Dynamics, our primary competitor. This is not just theft. Maya, this is industrial espionage." Liam used InnovateX as a front to access Vance Global's proprietary research, and he has been selling it, piece by piece, to Helios. The cabin pressure seemed to change, squeezing my chest. The betrayal was deeper than I could have imagined. He had not just been cheating on me with another woman. He had been using me, my name, and my family to commit federal crimes. "The divorce," I said, the realization landing with a sickening thud. The divorce was his exit plan. He was cashing out, leaving me. Evelyn Reed finally spoke, her voice cutting through my daze. "He intended to leave you holding the bag, Maya. When the espionage was eventually discovered, all evidence would have pointed to you, to your company. He would be in the Cayman Islands with his mistress, and you would be facing a federal indictment. The humiliation I felt 2 hours ago was gone, burned away by a sudden Arctic rage. This was not a divorce. This was a war." The Vance Mansion in Boston was not a home. It was a fortress of old money and older secrets. The black sedan slid silently through the wrought iron gates, and I stepped out onto gravel that crunched with an expensive sound. There was no buzzing neon here, only the cold, silent judgment of a 3-story granite facade. The air was sharp, smelling of the nearby ocean and wet stone. It was the complete opposite of the Austin Motel, and it was equally terrifying in its own way. Matilda Vance, the woman who had raised me, was waiting in the grand library. She was not standing by the fire wringing her hands, ready to offer tea and sympathy. She was standing behind her massive 200-year-old oak desk, a phone pressed to her ear. She was a tall, severe woman in a gray cashmere dress, and she looked less like a grieving aunt and more like a general who had just received bad intel. She finished her call as I entered, the click of the receiver echoing in the cavernous, book-lined room. "Matilda," I started. "He did not just steal from my niece," she said, her voice cutting off my own. Her eyes were not kind. They were chips of ice. "He stole from my company." She turned and swept a hand toward the door. "Evelyn is waiting. We are in the war room." The war room was a new addition since I had left. The old ballroom on the 3rd floor had been converted into a high-tech command center that would make the CIA envious. A holographic projector sat in the middle of a long glass table, and the walls were lined with floor-to-ceiling screens displaying data streams, legal documents, and satellite maps. Evelyn Reed and Mr. Graves were already there, Along with two other people, I did not recognize: a man with severe cybersecurity authority and a woman with an earpiece. "Sit, Maya," Matilda commanded, taking the seat at the head of the table. There was no small talk. Mr. Graves brought up the flowchart from the plane, now projected 10 feet wide. "The full picture," Evelyn began, "is this: Liam used your credentials as a Vance family shareholder, credentials you should never have shared, to gain backdoor access to the Vance Global R&D mainframe." I flinched, but she continued, ruthless. "Specifically, he accessed Project Chimera, our new solid-state energy grid technology, the single most valuable asset we have." Graves took over, his voice a dry monotone. "He packaged this data, selling it in tiered installments to our main competitor, Helios Dynamics. His shell corporation, InnovateX, which you funded, was the vehicle for these transactions. We have tracked 7 payments from Helios, totaling over $93 million, to an offshore account linked to InnovateX." My breath hitched. 93 million. "The divorce was his scorched earth strategy," Evelyn said, picking up the thread. "He intended to liquidate InnovateX, wire the funds to an untraceable account, and disappear with his mistress, Simone. The paper he had you sign was to sever his last link to the company. When Vance Global eventually discovered the breach, the federal investigation would have begun and ended with the sole proprietor of InnovateX, you. He was not just leaving me, he was framing me. He was going to let me go to prison for his crimes." The last wisp of the weak, crying woman in the motel room evaporated, burned away by a rage so cold and pure it was almost calming. I finally understood this world, the world I had run from. It was not about love or feelings. It was about power. And Liam had just shown me exactly how the game was played. I looked up, my spine straight, and met my aunt's icy gaze. "He thought I was weak," I said, my voice clear and low. "He thought I was stupid. He used me because I was the emotional Vance. He was wrong." I turned to Mr. Graves. "I want to see everything, every email, every transaction, every piece of data he stole." A flicker of something perhaps approval passed over Matilda's face. "You are not my niece today, Maya," she said, tapping a command into the console in front of her. "As of this moment, you are the acting head of internal investigation for Vance Global. Your security clearance is now level 10. Your only job is to find the vulnerability, retrieve our property, and burn him to the ground." "I will," I said. "Good," Evelyn Reed interjected, her eyes on her tablet. "Because your first problem is a big one. The data he stole required high-level, internal-only passcodes that change daily. Your shareholder access would not have been enough. Liam had an inside partner. A traitor. Someone within Vance Global." The room was silent. Everyone was looking at me, the new head of the investigation, waiting for my first move. "Find the mole," I said. The first thing I did was cut my hair. I stood in front of a mirror in my old, cavernous bedroom at the mansion and watched as the long, sun-bleached strands, the ones Liam always said he loved, fell to the marble floor. I had kept it long for him. I had worn the flowing floral dresses and the comfortable cardigans for him. It was the uniform of the supportive, simple Austin wife. It was a costume. When the stylist was finished, a sleek, sharp-edged bob that grazed my jawline remained. It was a helmet. The next day, my old wardrobe was gone, donated by Matilda's staff. It was replaced by a rack of armor, custom-tailored pantsuits in shades of charcoal, navy, and black, silk blouses so sharp they looked like they could cut, stilettos that clicked with the sound of a closing gavel. When I looked in the mirror, I did not see the woman who had cried on a motel floor. I saw a Vance, but the transformation was more than just aesthetic. The next 72 hours were the most brutal intellectual examination of my life. I did not sleep. I lived in the war room, fueled by black coffee and a cold, distilled fury. I was given a crash course by the heads of finance and cybersecurity. They did not treat me like a niece. They treated me like a new commanding officer. I learned to read encrypted transaction logs, to understand the architecture of the R&D mainframe, and to see the vulnerabilities in our own system. And I learned about the technology Liam had stolen, Project Chimera. It was not just data, it was my family's legacy. A new form of energy I had been too busy picking out paint swatches in Austin to even know existed. My old self, the naive girl who ran from this life, was gone. She had been murdered in that motel room. The woman left in her place was awake, and she was intelligent. On the 4th day, I found him. The mole, I announced in the war room, my voice echoing in the silence. Evelyn and Matilda looked up from their own work. I pointed to a name on the main screen. Gary. A mid-level analyst in the R&D finance division. His access codes were used to open the Chimera data vault 3 times, always between 2 and 3 in the morning, on dates that line up exactly with the payments from Helios Dynamics. Mr. Graves nodded grimly. We looked into him. He has a significant gambling problem, online poker. He is over $200,000 in debt. A simple, greedy, desperate man, Matilda said with disgust. Fire him. Ruin him. No, I said. Evelyn looked at me, a flicker of interest in her eyes. You do not fire a compromised asset. You turn it. He is scared and in debt. That makes him useful. Evelyn, you and I are going to have a talk with Gary. We cornered him in a sterile, soundproofed conference room in the Vance Global Tower. Gary was a small, sweating man in a cheap suit, his eyes darting to the exits. I stayed in the shadows while Evelyn laid out the case. She did not accuse, she stated facts. She showed him printouts of his betting accounts, then printouts of the server logs. By the time she was finished, Gary was the color of old parchment. You are facing a minimum of 20 years in federal prison for conspiracy to commit industrial espionage, Evelyn said, her voice neutral. That was when I stepped forward into the light. He flinched, not having seen me. Hello, Gary, I said. His eyes widened in recognition. Mrs. Donovan, I did not. My name is Ms. Vance, I corrected him, my voice like ice. And you are in a great deal of trouble. But you have one, and only one, chance to help yourself. We are not interested in you. We are interested in the man who paid you. We are interested in Liam Donovan. I offered him the deal. You will help us set a trap for Liam. You will continue to be his inside man. But now, you will be our inside man. You will feed him the information we tell you to feed him. You do that, and we will ensure your legal issues become lighter. The relief that flooded his face was pathetic. He nodded, his head bobbing frantically. Yes, anything. He ruined me. He said it was foolproof. Gary, our new double agent, was dismissed, already being handled by our security team. Evelyn and I were alone in the elevator. Well done, she said. It was the highest compliment I could imagine. We are not done, I said, looking at my own reflection in the polished steel doors. While I was digging into the server, Mr. Graves was digging into the InnovateX bank accounts. He found something. I pulled up a file on my tablet and showed her. Liam was sloppy. He put his mother on the payroll. Evelyn's eyebrows shot up. Brenda Donovan, I said, pointing to the line item. Listed as a consultant for InnovateX, receiving a retainer of $50,000 a month for the last 6 months. She was not just a spectator. She was a direct accomplice. It gets better, I said, swiping to another screen. Tiffany. His sister. She has been using a corporate credit card, issued to InnovateX, for her own personal shopping sprees. Over $30,000 in designer bags and spa treatments. The whole family. They were all in on it. They had all laughed at me on my doorstep, knowing they were spending my family's stolen money. The elevator doors opened to the lobby. I looked at Evelyn, a cold smile touching my lips for the first time. Good, I said. They laughed together. They can fall together. We located them in Las Vegas. While I was rebuilding my life in a high-tech war room, They were trying to spend the proceeds of my destruction. Our cybersecurity team, now my cybersecurity team, found them with ease. They were not just celebrating, they were in the process of buying a glass and steel monstrosity of a house overlooking the Strip. Liam was finally living the high roller life he always felt he deserved. They are at a final signing with a realtor, Mr. Graves reported, his voice flat. Right now. Evelyn, I said, not looking up from my screen. Trigger it. With pleasure, she replied. In Las Vegas, Liam Donovan, flanked by his grinning mother and sister, slid his black InnovateX-issued credit card to the realtor for the deposit. It was declined. He laughed it off. A small, nervous sound. According to the audio surveillance we had. A security flag, I am sure. He tried his personal debit card, the one linked to the main InnovateX holding account. Declined. His phone buzzed. It was an email from the bank. Account frozen pending legal inquiry. He tried to access the offshore account where the $93 million from Helios was sitting. Access denied. The injunction Evelyn had filed was a masterpiece of legal artistry. It was a digital iron wall that had slammed down on every single dollar he thought he possessed. The celebration stopped. The realtor's smile vanished. Brenda's triumphant smirk turned into a confused scowl, but the injunction was only the first shot. The second shot was the one they would not see coming until it was on their doorstep. The civil suit is filed, Evelyn announced, joining me in the war room. As the reclaimed majority owner of InnovateX, you are officially suing Liam Donovan for fraud, embezzlement, and breach of fiduciary duty. I also took the liberty of naming Brenda Donovan and Tiffany Donovan as co-conspirators in the embezzlement charge, citing their consultant fees and unauthorized corporate expenditures. Good, I said. They wanted to be part of his success. They can be part of his consequences. Now, it was time for the psychological warfare. Gary, I said into the secure speakerphone, it is time. In his office 2 floors below us, our mole sent the text. It was a masterpiece of controlled panic, designed to look like a desperate ally trying to help. Liam, red alert. The whole system is locking down. It is not Vance Global. It is Helios. They are flagging the accounts, claiming a breach. I think they are trying to cut you out, frame you for the whole thing and keep the tech and the money. Be careful. I watched the delivered receipt appear on Gary's screen. The seed was planted. Liam now believed his new partners, his fellow criminals, were betraying him. He was trapped between the family he had screwed and the competitors he had enabled. He had no one to trust. To help that narrative along, I made a call. I used a burner phone and a voice modulator to leak an anonymous tip to the most ruthless financial journalist in the country. I have it on good authority, I whispered, that there is a hostile internal takeover happening at a private tech firm called InnovateX. Rumor is the original founder is being pushed out by their new partners at Helios Dynamics, a real bloodbath. The story was online within an hour. It was vague, but it was just public enough. And that is when the final piece of his pathetic new life fell away. His mistress, Simone, was not stupid. She was an opportunist. She had seen the credit cards declined at dinner the night before. She saw the new, terrifying financial news alert that mentioned InnovateX. She did the math. The money was gone. While Liam was on the phone, screaming at a bank manager in the Cayman Islands, Simone packed her new, expensive suitcases. She quietly walked out of the penthouse hotel suite at the Bellagio and took a cab to the airport. She was gone before he even realized she had left the room. So there he was, my husband, trapped in a hotel suite he could no longer pay for. His cards were plastic. His $93 million payday was a digital ghost, and he was alone with the 2 people he was now chained to, his furious, terrified mother and his screaming, broke sister. The walls were closing in, and I had been the one to build them. Evelyn's team did not rest. While Liam and his family were imploding in their Vegas hotel room, we were digging deeper. Simone, it turned out, was just one of a string of infidelities. But she was not the most important woman he had betrayed. Mr. Graves, our forensic accountant, flagged a series of small early payments from InnovateX to an independent research lab in Austin. The payments stopped abruptly 6 months ago, right before Liam received the first major wire from Helios Dynamics. The lab was registered to a Dr. Eris Thorne. She was not listed as an employee. She was not a shareholder. She was listed as a consultant, but the patents for the technology Liam was selling were filed under his name alone. "This is the source," I said, pointing to the screen in the war room. "She is the brain. He did not invent Project Chimera. He stole it from her." I flew back to Austin. This time, I was not on a commercial flight. I took the Vance jet. I walked into the small, cluttered university-affiliated lab not as a refugee, but as a commander. Dr. Eris Thorne was a woman in her late 40s, with brilliant, frantic eyes and ink stains on her fingers. She was surrounded by whiteboards covered in equations I now understood. When I introduced myself as Maya Vance, she visibly recoiled, her face hardening. "I have nothing to say to you," Eris said, her voice tight. "I assume Helios or Vance Global sent you to clean up the loose ends, to buy my silence." "I am not from Helios," I said, "and I am not here as a representative of Vance Global. I am here as the wife of the man who stole your work." Her bravado crumbled. "What? What are you talking about? Liam is my partner. He is handling the business side. He said Helios was trying to cut me out, to steal the patents." I slid a file across the desk. "This is the original incorporation filing for InnovateX. That is my name as a co-founder, funded by my trust. And this," I slid another paper, "is the patent application for your solid-state energy technology. It is filed under one name, Liam Donovan." She stared at the papers, her face draining of all color. He said the patents were filed under the company name for protection. He said I was a full partner." "You are not a partner, Dr. Thorne," I said, my voice softening for the first time in weeks. "You were a consultant he was paying pennies to, just long enough to steal your research. He promised you a partnership. He promised me a marriage. He was lying to both of us." I leaned forward. "He did not just steal my money. Eris, he stole your entire life's work. He is currently in Las Vegas, or was, trying to buy a house with the $93 million he made from selling your genius to our competitors." The frantic energy in her eyes focused into a sharp, lethal point. "He did what?" "We are freezing the assets," I said. But we need to prove, unequivocally, that the intellectual property is not his. We need to invalidate the patents." Eris stood up and walked to a locked filing cabinet. "He is an idiot. He is a charming, stupid idiot. He took the data, but he does not understand the theory. He would not know how to defend it." She pulled out a thick binder. "I have the original server logs, the time-stamped research notes, the metadata proving creation. I can prove, in any court in the world, that those patents are fraudulent. I am Project Chimera." An alliance was formed. We now had the legal leverage and the technical proof. But as Mr. Graves and Dr. Thorne's team worked to merge their data, they found another anomaly. Before Liam had access to my trust fund, he and his mother were funding the initial InnovateX shell company with small, strange deposits. They were checks, written from a local Austin charity, a small one called the Austin Children's Mercy Fund. "That is impossible," I said. "Brenda. She volunteered there. She was their treasurer. She was so proud of it. I had Mr. Graves pull the charity's public financials. And there it was. For a year, Brenda Donovan had been using her position as treasurer to wash Liam's dirty money. The first small payments from Helios, before the main contract, were funneled into the charity's bank account as anonymous corporate donations. Brenda would then write checks from the charity to InnovateX for community outreach technology services. She was laundering his espionage money through a fund meant for a children's hospital. She was stealing from sick kids to help her son build his fraudulent empire. This was the real dynamite. Corporate fraud was one thing. A jury might get lost in the numbers. But this was pure, unadulterated evil. I got on the phone with Evelyn and Matilda. My voice was calm, but my heart was hammering with a black, righteous fury. He screws his partners, I said. He screws his wife. And his mother. His mother screws sick kids. A jury is going to love this. The hotel suite in Vegas, which they could not pay for, was just the beginning. Security eventually escorted them out, a scene our team watched with quiet satisfaction via a well-placed source. They were forced to abandon most of their new, gaudy purchases. They fled Las Vegas in the only asset they had left, a luxury SUV, which Mr. Graves gleefully informed me was a rental, and one that was 3 days past due. They drove 18 hours straight, all the way back to Austin, back to my apartment. They must have thought it was their last safe harbor, the one place they still controlled. I watched them on the building's security feed, which Evelyn had already secured access to. I watched them haul their remaining bags up to the door, Liam looking haggard and desperate, Brenda and Tiffany looking like furious, bedraggled crows. Liam's keycard did not work. He tried it again and again, swiping with increasing violence. He banged on the door, yelling. Then Brenda spotted it, taped to the wood a bright orange legal notice, an emergency eviction. I had dialed into the video feed's audio just in time to hear her read the words aloud, her voice shaking with rage. Eviction notice. Leaseholder agreement. Fraudulent transfer. She turned on Liam. What is this? The lease was in my name. I explained to Evelyn and Matilda, who were watching with me in the war room. When he had me sign that business loan paper, he also had me sign a lease transfer. It was fraudulent. All Evelyn had to do was show the building management the proof. They were happy to invalidate it and reclaim the unit. They were, officially, homeless, standing on the landing of the building they had thrown me out of. The screaming started. We could hear it through the hallway audio. "You promised us millions!" Brenda shrieked, her voice echoing. "You promised me a new house. You ruined us. This is all your fault," Tiffany wailed, hitting Liam's arm. "I cannot even buy a coffee. My card is declined. Declined." The family unit, once so unified in their laughter and cruelty, was eating itself alive. And that is when, in his lowest, most desperate moment, Liam did the one thing I was counting on. He decided to call the one person he was convinced he could still manipulate. He called me. I let it ring twice, then answered, putting the call on the speaker for the whole room to hear. "Maya." His voice was a pathetic, watery attempt at tenderness. "Maya, thank God. Baby, listen to me." I said nothing. It was all a terrible misunderstanding. "Maya." "Which part?" I asked, my voice as flat and cold as marble. "All of it. It was my mother. She pushed me. And Helios. They set me up. They threatened me. I never wanted to hurt you. Maya, you have to believe me. I still love you. I have always loved you." The man who had thrown my life onto a wet pavement, who had filmed my humiliation and planned to send me to prison, was now telling me he loved me. The audacity was breathtaking. "Is that all, Liam?" I asked, my voice bored. "I am in a board meeting." I hung up. The silence in the war room was absolute. I looked at Evelyn, at Dr. Thorne, who had flown in from Austin to be here. "Record that," I said. "Log it. It is proof of a guilty conscience, a desperate man." But a desperate man is a predictable one. We knew he had no money and no options. He had only one thing of value left of the stolen data. We had frozen the $93 million he had already made. But our intel suggested he had kept a backup copy of the Project Chimera data, a final insurance policy. He was like a rat in a maze, and we had just closed all the exits but one. "Gary," I said, initiating the call to our mole. He is desperate. He is going to try and sell his last remaining chip. I want you to make the call. Tell him you have a new buyer, someone who hates Vance Global even more than Helios. Tell him it is cash. Fast! Gary, terrified but eager to please, made the connection. Liam, predictably, jumped at it. He was going to sell his backup file to a new competitor, a rival of Helios, in a desperate attempt to get enough cash to flee the country. The buyer was, of course, a federal agent working with Vance Global's internal security. The meet was being set up. The final piece of the trap was in place. Liam had just agreed to walk right into it. The main ballroom at the Vance Global Tower was unrecognizable. We had converted it into a media stage, and the room was packed, suffocating with the heat of television lights. We had called a press conference under the innocuous banner of a major announcement regarding our new R&D direction. Every major financial outlet was here: tech bloggers, network news crews, and local Boston media. They were cramped and impatient, smelling a product launch or a merger. They were about to get a public execution. My Aunt Matilda, the imposing, unimpeachable face of Vance Global, spoke first. Her voice was a calm, authoritative rumble. Thank you all for coming. We at Vance Global value innovation above all else. But innovation requires integrity. Today, we are here to discuss the future of that innovation and the high cost of its defense. I am introducing Maya Vance, our new head of internal investigation, to lead this briefing. A ripple of confusion and interest went through the crowd. Vance, the prodigal daughter, the one who had run away, was back. I stepped up to the podium. I wore a crimson suit. I wanted them to remember the color. The lights were hot, but I felt nothing but a cold, steady purpose. My heart was not racing, it was counting. Good morning, I said, my voice carrying clearly through the speakers. We are here to talk about innovation. But before we can do that, we must talk about the innovators. I gestured to a woman sitting in the front row, poised and brilliant. I would like to introduce Dr. Eris Thorne. Eris stood, and I continued. Dr. Thorne is the singular mind behind the technology that will soon revolutionize the energy grid. She is the true inventor. She is the genius. She is the future. The cameras flashed, capturing Eris. Unfortunately, I said, and the mood in the room instantly shifted. Genius attracts predators. For the past year, Vance Global has been the target of a sophisticated criminal campaign of industrial espionage. Our competitor, Helios Dynamics, illegally acquired our proprietary data. A collective gasp. Journalists were already typing frantically. Helios did not act alone. They were fed this data by a shell corporation, a fraudulent front called InnovateX. This entity was created by one man for the sole purpose of defrauding this company and stealing from Dr. Thorne. Shh, I paused, letting the silence hang, finding the main camera lens. A man who used a position of intimate trust to commit his crimes. Mr. Liam Donovan. I used his name, but not his title. I was not his wife. I was his executioner. Mr. Donovan believed he had won. He believed he was wealthy. He believed he had covered his tracks, even after our injunctions froze his stolen accounts. He believed he had one last bargaining chip. He believed he could sell a backup copy of our data. I looked directly into the center camera, speaking to the world, but also to him, wherever he was. Mr. Donovan is, at this very moment, attempting to sell that stolen data in a federal sting operation, and he likes to talk. I nodded to the tech booth. Play the audio. Suddenly, Liam's voice, tinny, arrogant, and desperate, filled the ballroom. I do not care who you are. Just tell me you have the cash. I have the file right here. The whole Chimera project. It is worth billions, and I am selling it for $5 million, clean. I just need to get out of the country. The room was in stunned silence. The journalists were recording the audio on their own phones, their eyes wide. This was not just an accusation. This was a pre-packaged conviction. I signaled for the audio to stop. That, I said, is a matter for the authorities, but the corporate crime, shockingly, was not the most depraved act we uncovered. A new image appeared on the massive screen behind me. It was the logo for the Austin Children's Mercy Fund. The seed money for this criminal enterprise the funds used to bribe our employees and set up this fraudulent company was laundered. I showed the bank transfers, the printouts, by Mr. Donovan's mother, Brenda Donovan. As treasurer of a children's hospital charity, she systematically embezzled funds. She stole money intended for sick children to finance her son's corporate espionage. The room exploded. This was no longer a financial story. This was a story of human greed so black and rotten it was almost unbelievable. The moral corruption was absolute. Before I had even stepped off the stage, the digital alerts were pinging. Helios Dynamics stock was in freefall, dropping over 30% in pre-market trading. Within 10 minutes, their PR department issued a frantic statement, claiming they were shocked and appalled, that they were victims of Mr. Donovan's fraud, and that they were cutting all ties and launching their own massive lawsuit against him. Liam, who was at that moment being put in handcuffs, was now being sued by me, by Vance Global, by Dr. Eris Thorne, and by his own criminal partners. He was finished. We had not arrested him at the sting. The press conference was the true trap. It had preempted his final move, turning him from a white-collar criminal into a public pariah, a hunted man, in a single morning. Our security team, tracking his burner phone, located them within an hour of the broadcast. The irony was sickeningly perfect. They were holed up in a cheap motel off the highway, 20 miles outside of Austin, a place with buzzing neon and carpets that smelled like bleach. He had ended up in the very same circle of hell he had cast me into. The only difference was, I was watching him on a high-definition screen in the war room. We had audio, too, from a bug our team had placed on their rented SUV, a vehicle they had foolishly kept. They were watching the news, not just watching, but reliving their own execution. They saw me, in my crimson suit, at the podium. They saw me introduce Eris Thorne. They saw the stock ticker for Helios Dynamics flatline. Then they saw the segment on the Austin Children's Mercy Fund. On our audio feed, there was a sharp cracking sound. "Brenda, you," she screamed, her voice a raw shriek of animal rage. "You told me it was a tax shelter. You told me it was smart. You put my name on it." "Shut up, Mom!" Liam yelled back. "I will not shut up." We heard a crash, the sound of a flimsy lamp hitting a wall. "You ruined us, you dragged us into this. You promised me millions. You promised me a house. You useless, stupid boy." She must have attacked him then. We heard a thud, a scuffle, and Liam's voice, no longer smooth or charming, but a guttural roar. "Get off me. You think this is my fault. You were in on it from the start. You loved the money. I did not steal from sick children." Brenda sobbed. "Yes, you did." He roared. "You just did not have the stomach to ask what it was. I did this. All of it, I planned it for years. I planned it the day I met her. I never loved Maya. You think I could love that cold, pathetic Boston bitch? I wanted the money, I wanted the Vance name, I wanted to burn their whole world down, and you were happy to light the matches with me. It was a full confession. A torrent of pure, undiluted venom. Everything I had suspected, everything I had feared, spoken aloud by the man himself. And then, a new sound. A quiet click. In the corner of the room, out of the main fight, Tiffany, the dumb sister, the one who was only good for shopping, was sitting on the edge of the bed. She was shaking, her face pale, but her phone was held steady. She had been secretly recording the entire screaming tirade. She saw her brother and mother covered in a new mutual layer of filth. She saw the end, and she chose herself. While they were still screaming, she slipped into the motel bathroom and locked the door. She pulled up the newsfeed from the press conference. She found the name Evelyn Reed, Vance Global Legal. She called the main switchboard. "I have something you want," she whispered, her voice trembling. I have a full confession. From Liam. I have it on my phone. What will you give me? The call was patched through to the war room. Evelyn put it on speaker, her face a mask of cold concentration. This is Evelyn Reed, she said. You are offering evidence. I am offering a conviction, Tiffany corrected, her voice suddenly gaining a small, rat-like cunning. I want a deal. Evelyn did not hesitate. You are complicit in credit card fraud. Ms. Donovan, testify against your brother. Turn over that recording, and I will recommend to the DA that you receive a probated sentence. You walk away. Yes, Tiffany breathed. Yes. Okay. He is crazy. He is yelling. We are arranging an extraction for you, Evelyn said. Stay in the bathroom. Do not hang up. But Liam, paranoid and now completely unhinged, had seen his sister disappear. He had stopped yelling at his mother. He was listening at the bathroom door. He heard the words confession and deal. We heard the splintering of wood as he kicked the bathroom door off its hinges. Tiffany screamed, He is here! Give me the phone! Liam bellowed. We heard the scuffle, a slap, and Tiffany's cry of pain. The line went dead. A moment later, the GPS on the rented SUV lit up. It was moving, fast. Liam had the phone, he had the confession, and he was running. He was no longer just a con man. He was a violent fugitive, and he was cornered. He did not run to the airport. He did not run to the border. He was an animal of pure narcissistic ego, and he had been wounded. So he ran straight toward the person who had wounded him. He ran straight to me. He drove the rented, bugged, and tracked SUV from Austin all the way to Boston, a 28-hour, non-stop drive fueled by psychosis and whatever was left of his adrenaline. He abandoned the vehicle 2 blocks away and walked, disheveled and shaking, right up the front steps of the Vance Global Tower. He burst into the marble lobby, a place of quiet, cold commerce, like a rabid dog. He was screaming, Where is she? Where is Maya? Tell her I am here. Tell her I have the tape. I will bring all of you down with me. I will tell the world what she did. The security team, my security team, locked down the lobby and called me in the war room. He is here, Ms. Vance. He is threatening to release a recording. I looked at Evelyn. She simply nodded, a thin, cold smile on her face. Let him, I said into the phone. Tell him I will be right down. I want him to see me. I walked out of the elevator alone, though I knew 12 plain-clothed security agents were now blended into the lobby, watching his every move. He was standing in the center of the atrium, under the massive suspended glass sculpture. He was a wreck. His clothes were rumpled, his eyes were bloodshot, and he was vibrating with a manic, toxic energy. When he saw me, his face twisted into a snarl of triumph. He thought he had won. He thought I had come to negotiate. Finally, he spat. Ready to talk, you bitch. Hello, Liam, I said, my voice calm. I stopped a safe 10 feet away from him. You think you are so smart, he hissed, his voice cracking. You think you won, but I have it. I have the confession. My mother, me, all of it, recorded, by Tiffany. He held up his sister's pink-cased phone like it was a bomb. You want this to go public? You want the world to hear what really happened? No, I did not think so. $10 million. Wired. Now. Or I upload this, and I tell the world how you framed me. I looked at him, at this small, pathetic, burning remnant of a man. I almost smiled. What tape? Liam. His manic grin faltered. What? What do you mean? What tape? The recording. I have it. Oh, the recording, I said, feigning sudden understanding. You mean the one Tiffany was live streaming to our secure cloud server the entire time? The one Mr. Graves and Dr. Thorne already downloaded and cataloged as Exhibit A for the DA, that tape. Yes, Liam, we have it. It is wonderful. Thank you for that. His face, his entire body, seemed to collapse. The blood drained from his face. He had lost. He had no more cards. You, he whispered, shaking his head. You. No. And then, his eyes lit up with one last, desperate spark of malice. He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a crumpled, familiar stack of papers, the ones he had thrown on my dining room table a lifetime ago. The divorce papers, he screamed, his voice echoing in the vast lobby. You signed them, I still have them. They are valid, it does not matter. You get nothing. You signed it all away, you get nothing. He was waving the papers in the air, a mad king on a crumbling throne. That is where you are wrong, Mr. Donovan. The voice was not mine. It was Evelyn Reed's. She was walking calmly, authoritatively, across the marble floor, flanked by two men in dark suits who were not Vance security. They were federal agents. Liam froze. He turned, the crumpled papers still in his hand. Evelyn stopped directly in front of him. My client is right, she said. The divorce papers you are holding are meaningless. She reached into her own briefcase and pulled out a new, crisp set of documents. These, she said, are the only papers that matter now. She handed the top sheet to the agent. This is a federal warrant for your arrest, for conspiracy, wire fraud, and industrial espionage. And this, she said, holding up a single, final document, is for you. She did not hand it to him. She held it up for him to read. It is a court-ordered annulment, signed by a judge this morning. The court has ruled that your marriage to Ms. Maya Vance was predicated on systemic, demonstrable fraud. She looked him dead in the eye, her voice dropping to a merciless whisper. Your marriage, legally, never existed. He did not say a word. He just stared, his mouth open as the agents stepped forward. They took the phone from his limp hand. They took the crumpled divorce papers. Then they cuffed his hands behind his back. His mother and sister were arrested an hour later, still cringing in that filthy motel room. His family was ruined. His life was over. As they led him away, his head bowed. He looked back at me one last time. I just watched, my face calm, a stranger. Then I turned and walked back to the elevator, my head held high, completely in control and completely free. Thank you so much for listening to this story. I am so glad you are here. Please let us know where you are listening from in the comments. I would love to connect and hear your thoughts on Liam's downfall. Do not forget to subscribe to Lily Revenge Stories, like this video, and hit that hype button to help this story reach more people who need to hear it.